that marriage, the family, is a fundamental building block of all nations, societies, cultures, and people. And we got to get this one right if that society, culture, and people is going to survive. If we get it wrong, it doesn't survive. They disappear. And it is very important to realize that that is a biblical truth and a principle. Marriage should be between people who know each other reasonably well. Oh, my, I tell you, I've had phone calls that are very interesting. And I have had calls in regards, individuals call that I don't even know. And they introduce themselves and says, I'm looking to get married. Do you perform weddings? And I usually respond that I do on certain occasions, and if everything is copacetic. And I ask them a few questions. How long have you known the person that you want to get married to? And I've had answers like this. Known them for a couple of weeks. And you want to get married? Oh, we're madly in love. It was love at first sight. And not all that sounds so uplifting and just a type of a feel-good type situation. But the problem with that is you don't know the person. You really don't know the person. It takes some time to know the person, but you need to know them. Marriage is just not something one does unless he or she really knows the other person. And that takes time. It takes maturity. As a general rule, the older the couple are that are getting married they know more what to look for in a spouse. And the younger they are, the less they know. They don't even know what to look for in some cases. And so when they are couple are getting married at an older age, it usually is a situation that, they understand each other. And they understand well, or at least well enough that they can make the marriage work. So that's an important thing that we need to know. That's why engagements are a good thing. They give both parties the opportunity to really get to know each other. That is, know their likes, dislikes, true character, attitudes, how they handle responsibility, finances, difficulties, their level of maturity, how spiritually minded. Of course, quickly one would say, what about people who are not Christians? Well, they may be, as the general belief is today, they may be spiritual, but that's wide open to all kinds of definitions by the world. But biblical spirituality is what we're talking about here. It's approaching things from God's standpoint, from God's viewpoint. That becomes the important issue, and being spiritual. Engagement should not be too lengthy, however. A period of 6 to 9 months is usually about right. Some will go a year, and a few go more than that, but that's usually carrying it a little further than it necessarily needs to be. And we need to realize the importance of getting to know that person before you marry them. And there we go. Proverbs 18:22, whosoever findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtaineth favor of the Lord. This is an interesting observation. And one of the reasons why it's interesting is, you'll notice it has to do with the male, the man, who is finding a wife. And that was in the Old Testament usually the way things happened. Two families would get together, One has a daughter, the other has a son. They are of marriageable age, and they discuss the possibility of these two getting married. And after much discussions that could go on for weeks, even months, even some cases years, they may decide that it would be good for them to get married. Well, this is the idea behind this whole statement. Whosoever findeth a wife, there's a searching process that goes on. Looking, whether you are a wife, a female that is looking to become a wife, or whether you're a male that's looking to become a husband. It takes time to get to know people. And you need to be sure you know them. And it's very important to understand it from the spiritual dynamic as well. Because if you approach the marriage on a spiritual level, a biblically spiritual level, the chances of that marriage being successful are much, much higher than those who approach it, well, with virtually no spiritual consideration at all. And even if they have a spiritual consideration that's not biblical, it's still much lower until you get things lined up according to God's plan. They findeth a good thing. Marriage is a good thing. In God's eyes, it's always been a good thing. And the fundamental definition of marriage is, of course, biblically speaking, spiritually, biblically speaking, is a male who marries a female. That constitutes a biblical marriage. Anything else doesn't. It simply doesn't. It may meet the desires and the whims of society and the thinking of society at any given time or place, but it still does not meet biblical standards. And that is a very important thing to be considered in marriage, biblical standards. They find a good thing and obtaineth favor of the Lord. And that again, of course, is when we're searching for it on biblical, spiritual principles. Well, one will never regret following God's principle in respect to dating and marriage. If you are sincere before the Lord in your desire, in your search for a husband or your search for a wife, as it is in our culture, the whole thing that we need to do is keep it on that spiritual level, that spiritual plane. And looking at the fruits of the world's way. Wow. One will never regret following God's principles in respect to dating and marriage, but look at the fruits of the world's way. Look at the mess. In our society today, 1/2 of all marriages end in divorce. That's not a very good number. That's a very bad number. And particularly when you understand God's view of divorce. He says, I hate the putting away, or I hate divorce. And that's what divorce is, putting away. It don't work for us any longer. And the reasons of divorce has become so prominent today is because that's looked at as the escape route if this doesn't work out. Rather than looking for that individual in which you know them so well that you agree on all the principles of life. You agree in a spiritual way, a spiritual dynamic according to what God's plan and purpose are, and you're committed to it. My mother and my father, divorce was not a word because they married for life. Kathy and I, divorce is not a word. We're married for life. It's not an option. It don't have to be an option. Here's the simple fact. If two people really want to solve the issues that lead to the breakup, the divorce, it can be fixed. But if one of them is not willing, or both of them are not willing, it can't be fixed. It will fall apart. And that's pretty much where we're at today. We get married on our whim, and we get divorced on our whim. And it's something that has infiltrated society in other areas. It has spilled over into the work ethic today, too. I was talking with an individual recently that said, I cannot find a person to hire that has a work ethic. They're not out there today, it seems. And that person was telling me, he said, when I do get somebody, and we do decide to hire them, they don't stay. At the first little upset over anything, insignificant or whatever, they're gone. And that's what happens in marriage. If we don't know the person and we're not committed to that person, and that person is committed to us. This is why we need to seek the face of God in whom we marry. Very important to do that. All right? When one is contemplating marriage, there are several characteristics that should be possessed by the one you're seriously interested in. In other words, take an honest assessment of that person's character, qualities of a mature Christian that would make them a good candidate for marriage. Following. Wow. We're going to be looking at quite some length. The first thing, we're going to look at the potential husband. Then we're going to look at the potential wife. And the characteristics that one needs to look for, consider, talk about, and understand. This will bring about a greater positive response when you do get married. You will be on agreement with each other. That doesn't mean that you're perfect and that you won't have any misunderstandings in marriage. You won't have any difficulties in marriage. There's no such thing as the perfect marriage. And the reason why? There's no such thing as a perfect person. So no matter how hard you try, you can achieve a high level of spiritual maturity and success and have great success in marriage. But it's not going to be perfect because neither the husband or the wife enter a marriage perfect. Now, we who are Christian look forward to a fantastic future in which perfection, that's all there will be. The absolute perfection of God that becomes a part of the very nature and the character of saved people for all eternity. We literally will be made in His image. That is, His nature and character. All right. So, let's take a look at the man. The potential husband. Let's look at some of the things that are important that we should consider. He should be spiritual. A spiritually minded person. Now we're talking about, again, spirituality from the Christian point of view. Not spirituality from the Hindu point of view or some other religion or even just some other philosophy that we call my spiritual self or whatever. We're talking about biblical, spiritual. Looking for a man who is spiritual. So when you're looking for a man, he should be a man that is spiritual, spiritually minded. He is a believer in the Bible, a witness for Christianity. Is he any of these things? A soul winner. Well, what in the world is a soul winner? Well, a soul winner is a Christian who shares their faith with other people. They point other people to Christ. They talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ to other people. Again, we're looking at a Christian marriage. A Christian marriage. So a Christian should be looking for a Christian woman should be looking for a Christian man. Seeking first the kingdom, that's the kingdom of God, is doing God's will first in his life. Does he just take a shot in the dark and say, well, I'll try this, I'll try that, I'll do this, I'll have this, that, and the other? And we approach the marriage the same way. My, oh my, it's potluck as to what will happen next. But how about seeking the will of God? Who does God want me to marry? Yeah. And get comfortable with that person in relationship to the answer to that question. I can assure you, as a Christian who asks those questions, Lord, I want to get married. Show me the one you want me to marry. And guess who he showed me? Yeah, Kathy B., my wife. And I knew, within 1 year of meeting her, I knew that she was God's person to be my wife. I knew that. Now, it took her a little bit longer, but that's because we're different people. It took her a little while longer, but she came to that conclusion too. And so we got married after dating for 3.5 years. But we really knew about each other. We talked about everything. We knew our likes, our dislikes, our wants, our dreams, our hope. She knew that I was a preacher. Yeah. She knew that God was first in my life, and I knew that God was first in her life. One of the things that I did when I became very interested in the possibility of her becoming my wife, when I met anybody that knew Kathy, I would question them about her, what type of a person she was. My goal was to find out, is she the same type of person that she is when she's with me? Or is this nothing but a show that she puts on for me, but lives differently out there? And the thing that I universally found, not one negative comment was made. They all confirmed that Kathy was exactly like what I knew her to be personally. And she's still that way. Yeah, she's still that way. She hasn't changed a bit. Yeah. Well, these are important factors. Okay. Seeking the will of God. Does he seek the will of God if you're looking for him? Is he a prayer, not just a player? Does he have conversation with God? Is God that close to him in his life? Very important. Does he talk to God? B, he should be a man of character. You don't want some Fruit Loop out there that doesn't have any principles that they live by, no standards of right and wrong, just whatever works, whatever happens at the moment. You don't want anybody like that. A man of character, that is, he does right. He lives right. Someone has said that character is what you are when no one is looking. That's true. What is this person like when nobody's looking? And that's an important dynamic that we need to remember. Yeah. Is he responsible and punctual in his habits, his lifestyle, what he lives? Or is he a fly-by-night individual? It's a little of this here and something else over there and something else over there. No real pattern of an organized lifestyle. This will tell you whether or not this person is mature, both spiritually as well as physically, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. Very important that they're mature. Okay. Responsible, punctual in his habits. Can he be relied on to be on time? Yeah, I'll see you at 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock, he doesn't show up. 6:30, they show up. Oh, well, I got waylaid over here. I got stopped over this, that, and the other. Well, pick up a phone if somebody's expecting you. I'm not going to be there at 5. I got tied up in traffic. And there's an accident, something, whatever. Be a reliable, dependable person. An individual who says, I will do this, I will come, I will take care of this, you can count on me. That's the type of person you want. Somebody you can count on. Yeah. All right. Is he good-natured? Is he honest? A personable individual? Is he a person of integrity? Can he say no to sin? Looking for a man of character. Looking for a man that is exactly what he appears to be. In our culture today, it is easy to appear something that you're not. It's easy. So you have to really look hard on these people. You really have to challenge down. There have been any number of cases that I've come across through the years that were sad situations. The woman was a Christian. And she was looking for a man, for a husband. He knew all the right answers when the questions were asked. And one of the questions she asked the individual, are you a Christian? Are you committed to Jesus Christ? And his answer was an affirmative yes. And they got married. And she found out he wasn't a Christian. He certainly didn't talk like one, didn't live like one, didn't love her like one. But now she was stuck with him for life. And she did. She stayed with him. But it wasn't easy. But you got to check them out. Don't be afraid to verify. Know whom you're marrying. Very important. Yeah. C, he should be manly. All men, all males need to man up. Be a man. Know who you are. Act like a man. Stand up like a man. Talk like a man. Make decisions like a man. Give leadership like a man. Don't be wishy-washy. Know who you are. Know where you stand on things in life. Yeah. Yeah. He should be manly. That is masculine and not effeminate. There are those who kind of have feminine characteristics about them. Avoid them like the plague. They haven't figured out who or what they are yet. Part of the situation that we're facing today in culture. Okay. There should be no confusion as to his gender. Well, I'm not sure who I am. The slightest hint of this, you want to run the other direction. This person is definitely not ready for marriage. All right? Not an androgynous. That word means having both male and female characteristics. You see somebody like that? They're not a candidate for marriage. Avoid them completely. D, he should be pure, not used merchandise. You say, that's going to be hard to find today. Yeah, but what a find when you find that person. Wow. Very important. Contrary to popular opinion, purity is not just for women. Purity is for men. A man needs to know how to be a man, and he knows how to accept his male responsibilities, desires and dreams and hopes. But a man that is giving himself to everything is a mess, and you don't want anything to do with that. You'll never have a good marital relationship in that situation. Okay, should be pure, very important. Sexual sin devastates the mind and conscience, both emotionally and spiritually. Sexual sins leave scars, even if repetitive. Classic example, King David. King David. And because of his sin, God said, the sword will never depart from your house. Today in our culture, do whatever, be whatever, with whoever, whenever, however. That's the culture today that we live in. So seeking for a husband, a man that's pure, a man that is a man's man, one who stands up for a man as a man, pure, holy, committed, a man of integrity, honesty, and truth. Wow. Okay. Well, moving on to the next page. Consider these things. Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. 1 Timothy 4:12. This is the advice that Paul gave to young Timothy. He was a young man. He probably was barely 30 years old. And he was considered youthful. But he needed to be an individual that possessed all these characteristics. Very important. Not letting anybody despise your youth. What that simply means, and Paul's counsel to Timothy was this: live like a mature adult male, even though you're as young as you are. And you can have youth that are mature for their age. And I've known young people that were mature beyond their age. So it is possible. So keeping all that in mind. And these are the various areas. Be an example to the believers, other Christians, because Timothy was a young pastor. Be an example in your words, the conversations that you carry out, the lifestyle that you're living, in love, charity, in spirit, meaning that your spirit is true to who you really are, in faith, your faith is evident in your lifestyle, in purity, that also being evident in your lifestyle. In 1 Timothy 5:22, Paul says this to Timothy: lay hands suddenly on no man. The principle here is don't make a quick choice to pick a man to do a responsibility in the Christian ministry. In marriage, don't pick a man before they demonstrate themselves as being a quality individual, mature enough and spiritual enough to deal with marriage. Yeah. Flee fornication. Again, the word fornication, it refers to all types, varieties, styles of sexual sins. Every sin that a man doeth or practices is without the body, meaning outside the body. But he that committeth fornication, sexual sins, sinneth against his own body. 1 Corinthians 6:18. Yeah. You're actually sinning against yourself. And say, oh, how does that work? Well, if you practice that for a little while, you'll find out it doesn't work well at all. It leaves you with scars and sorrows and sometimes diseases that you can never cure. Yeah. Wow. Colossians chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Mortify. The word mortify means put to death. Put to death, therefore, your members which are upon the earth. Put to death those things that is a part of your body. And again, we're talking about men as well as women at this point that are worldly, sinful. Don't let them rule you. Now, when you're looking to get married or you're looking at somebody to marry, where are they at in all this? Are they living the lifestyle of the world, or are they living a lifestyle that is Christian? Yeah. And again, put to death your members which are upon the earth. He lists them: fornication, all sexual sins, uncleanness, anything that pollutes you with sin, inordinate affection. This is sins that are out of nature's pattern. Homosexuality, for one. Okay? Evil concupiscence, evil talking, evil speech, evil desires, and covetousness, which is idolatry. These are things that we Christians are supposed to put to death. Don't let them rule your life. Don't let them have control and direction in your life. When looking for a mate, look for somebody that's pure. Wow. For which things' sake the wrath of God cometh upon the children, that's Christians, of disobedience. Christians who don't follow this command, they're under the wrath of God. They're heading for his discipline. Well, at this point, time is virtually gone, but just one more thing to think about. You look at all this and you say, that is hard. That is impossible to find. Yes, it's hard. But if you're seeking the will of God, it's not impossible. Is anything too hard for the Lord? And the answer to that is